In early 2023, fans noticed something was missing from one of YouTube's most followed custom car builds. Jolene, a key figure beside Bad Chad for years, suddenly disappeared without clear explanation. At first, it seemed like a quiet personal change. But as weeks passed, questions grew louder and theories spread online. Then Chad finally spoke out, and what he revealed raised even more concerns. What really happened behind the scenes, and why did everything fall apart so quickly? Stay with the story. It began quietly. A small garage, simple tools, and ideas that did not follow the usual rules. In the late 2010s, Bad Chad started building cars in a way that felt different. He was not focused on perfection. He focused on creativity. He took old, damaged vehicles and reshaped them into something unexpected. People noticed. At first, only a small group watched his work online. But those who did stayed. They were drawn to the raw process. Sparks flying, metal bending, designs forming step by step. Then there was Jolene. She did not always stand in front of the camera, but her presence was clear. Calm and steady, she balanced the energy in the workshop. While Chad worked with intense focus, she brought structure to the chaos. Together, they created something unique. It was not just about cars. It was about connection. As their videos spread across YouTube, their audience began to grow. By around 2019 and 2020, their channel had reached a wider audience. Viewers from different countries started watching regularly. This was also a time when automotive content was rising fast. Many creators focused on speed, luxury, or high-budget builds. But this channel offered something else. Authenticity. There were no perfect studio setups. No scripted moments. Just real work. Real challenges. Real progress. Jolene became an important part of that experience. She supported the builds, helped organize the work, and often brought a sense of calm during stressful moments. Viewers connected with her. Comments often mentioned how her presence made the videos feel complete. She was not just part of the background. She was part of the story. As the channel grew, so did the expectations. More viewers meant more pressure. More pressure meant more work. The builds became larger. The timelines became tighter. Each project needed to be more impressive than the last. Long hours became normal. Late nights in the garage. Cameras recording almost everything. For creators, this kind of growth can be exciting, but it also brings challenges. According to industry observations, many fast-growing channels face stress behind the scenes. Balancing creativity and consistency is not easy. And when personal life becomes part of the content, the pressure increases even more. Still, on camera, everything seemed strong. Chad continued to build. Jolene continued to support. They laughed. They worked together. To the audience, it looked like a perfect partnership. But small details began to appear. Moments where the energy felt slightly different. Short pauses. Less interaction. Nothing obvious. Nothing that raised immediate concern. Most viewers did not notice. Because when success is visible, hidden struggles are often ignored. And yet, those small moments can mean something. Over time, they start to connect. The pressure of constant creation. The weight of public attention. It does not show all at once. It builds slowly. And in many cases, it stays hidden until something changes. At this stage, everything still looked stable. The channel was growing. The audience was loyal. But beneath that surface, something was beginning to shift. Quietly, gradually, almost invisible to those watching from the outside. And sometimes, the strongest partnerships carry the deepest pressure without showing it. What seemed like a strong partnership was about to face its first serious cracks. At first, nothing seemed wrong. The uploads continued. The builds looked as creative as ever. But small changes had already begun. By late 2022, regular viewers started to notice a difference. Jolene was not appearing as often. In earlier videos, she had been a steady presence. Now, she was sometimes missing completely. At first, it felt normal. Creators often shift roles. Not every video needs the same people. But this change felt gradual and unusual. In some clips, Jolene appeared only briefly. In others, she was not seen at all. Her voice, once familiar, became less frequent. The rhythm of the videos started to feel different. Viewers began to comment. Where is Jolene? Everything okay? These questions appeared again and again. At first, there were no answers. The channel did not address the change. There were no updates or explanations. For many viewers, this silence created curiosity. Online communities began to talk. Discussion threads appeared on forums and social media. Some viewers believed it was a personal choice. Others thought it was a creative decision to change the content style. A few suspected something more serious. But there was no confirmation. This situation was not unusual in the world of online content. Many creators choose to keep personal matters private. According to industry patterns, maintaining a stable image is often seen as important. So even when problems exist, they are rarely shown. Looking back at those videos, the signs were there. Moments where conversations felt shorter. Moments where energy felt lower. Subtle changes in body language. But at the time, they were easy to ignore. The build still moved forward. The channel still uploaded regularly. Everything looked normal on the surface. But something felt off. The connection that once felt natural now seemed slightly distant. And viewers could sense it. Even if they could not explain it clearly, they knew something had changed. Days turned into weeks. The questions grew louder. Still, there was no response. No post. No statement. Only silence. And silence often creates more questions than answers. As time passed, the absence became more noticeable. Jolene was no longer just appearing less. She was not appearing at all. There was no goodbye moment. No clear transition. Just a sudden absence. For loyal viewers, this was not just a small change. It felt like a missing piece of the story they had followed for years. Because for them, this was never just about cars. It was about the people behind them. And now, one of those people was gone. With no explanation. With no clarity. The mystery deepened. And as the silence continued, one question remained stronger than all the others. What really happened? With no clear explanation, the disappearance left fans searching for answers that had yet to come. The turning point came, without warning. In early 2023, a new video was uploaded. The setting looked familiar. The garage. The tools. The unfinished build waiting in the background. But something was missing. Jolene was not there. At first, viewers waited. Maybe she would appear later in the video. But she did not. As the video ended, the comments began to fill. Questions appeared almost immediately. Some were simple. Others carried concern. Where is she? Is everything okay? At that moment, it was still unclear. But as more videos were released, a pattern formed. Jolene was no longer part of the content. There was no mention of her absence. No explanation from Chad. This is when the situation became real. For longtime viewers, the change felt sudden. For years, the channel had shown both of them working side by side. Their presence had become part of the identity of the content. Now, that identity felt incomplete. Social media reactions began to grow. Clips were shared. Comments were analyzed. Some viewers went back to older videos, trying to find signs they had missed. Others created posts asking for updates. Speculation started to spread. Some believed there had been a disagreement. Others thought it could be a private matter. A few hoped it was temporary. But as days turned into weeks, that hope began to fade. In the world of online creators, sudden changes like this often lead to confusion. According to content trends, audiences expect some level of communication when major shifts happen. Without that, people begin to fill in the gaps themselves. And those gaps can quickly turn into rumors. The silence from the channel only made things more uncertain. Each new upload without Jolene confirmed the same thing. She was gone. And not just for a short break. For many viewers, this moment felt personal. They had followed the journey for years. They had watched the builds, the challenges, and the shared progress. Now, that shared presence had disappeared. Without warning, without explanation, the emotional tone of the audience shifted. Support turned into concern. Curiosity turned into frustration. because people were not just asking what happened, they were asking why they were not being told. Weeks passed. Still no clear answer. No official update. No detailed explanation. The absence became permanent. And with that, the pressure grew. Viewers continued to ask questions. The demand for clarity increased. Eventually, it reached a point where silence was no longer enough. Something had to be said. Then, after mounting pressure from the audience, Chad finally spoke. But when he finally spoke, his words raised more questions than they answered. The silence did not last forever. After weeks of growing questions, Chad finally addressed the situation. It came through a video and brief public statements. The tone was calm, but serious. He did not ignore the questions, but he did not answer all of them either. From the beginning, it was clear that something had changed in a major way. Chad spoke about personal challenges. He mentioned that things were not easy behind the scenes. There were hints of strain. He suggested that working together, living together, and running a public channel had created pressure over time. It was not one simple issue. It was something that had built slowly. This was not unusual. According to industry patterns, many content creators face similar problems. When personal relationships and business mix, the pressure can grow quickly. Every disagreement can feel larger when it happens in front of an audience. And for creators, there is always an expectation to keep going, keep filming, keep uploading, keep performing. Chad's explanation reflected that reality. He spoke about moving forward, about focusing on the work. But when it came to details about Jolene's departure, the answers were limited. There was no clear timeline, no specific moment described, just general explanations. For some viewers, this was enough. They understood that not everything can be shared publicly. They respected the privacy of the situation and showed support. But for others, the explanation felt incomplete, because the questions that had built up over weeks were not fully answered. What exactly happened? How long had things been difficult? And why did it end the way it did? The audience reaction was mixed. Supportive comments appeared, thanking Chad for speaking at all. Others asked for more clarity, hoping for a deeper explanation. Some viewers began to analyze his words closely. They looked for meaning in tone, pauses, and phrasing. Because when details are missing, people try to find them. This moment became a turning point. Before this, the story was built on silence and speculation. Now, there was at least some form of explanation. But it did not close the story. It opened a new phase. A phase where part of the truth was visible, but much of it remained hidden. In digital media, transparency can build trust. But partial transparency can sometimes create more confusion. Because when people feel they are only hearing part of the story, they continue to search for the rest. And that is exactly what happened. Even after Chad spoke, discussions did not stop. They grew. People compared old videos with new ones. They revisited past moments, looking for signs they had missed. The story shifted from what happened to what are we not being told, because something still did not feel complete. There were still gaps. And those gaps left space for doubt. For many viewers, the explanation answered some questions. But it also created new ones that could not be easily resolved. If that was the truth, then why did it feel like something was still being left unsaid? To understand what truly happened, the story must be viewed differently. Not as a sudden event, but as a process. Because most partnerships do not break in one moment. They change slowly over time. Looking back, the signs begin to connect. The reduced appearances, the quiet distance, the shift in energy. These were not random. They were part of a larger pattern. In creative partnerships, especially those built in public, pressure can build quietly. Every project brings expectations. Every upload brings judgment. And when personal life is tied to that work, the pressure becomes even stronger. Bad Chad and Jolene were not just creating content. They were living it. Their work and personal relationship existed in the same space. The same garage. The same routine. The same audience watching everything. According to industry observations, this kind of setup can be difficult to maintain for long periods. There is little separation. Work does not end when the camera stops. Stress does not disappear when the video is uploaded. it stays. Over time, that pressure can lead to creative differences. Small disagreements that slowly grow. Differences in direction, in priorities, or in how things should be handled. Nothing dramatic at first. Just small changes. But small changes can build. Looking at the timeline, it becomes clearer. Late 2022 showed reduced involvement. Early 2023 showed complete absence. Between those moments, something shifted. Chad's statement hinted at these challenges. He spoke about pressure and change, but not in detail. Still, those hints were enough to suggest that this was not a single event. It was a build-up, a slow process that reached a breaking point. For the audience, this realization changes the story. Instead of asking, "What happened that day?" the question becomes, "What happened over time?" And that is harder to answer. Because those moments are often private. Not everything is filmed. Not everything is shared. Some conversations happen off camera. Some decisions are made quietly. And in many cases, those are the moments that matter most. Jolene's role had always been important. She was part of the foundation of the channel. Her presence shaped the tone, the balance, and the connection with viewers. Without her, the structure changed. Not just visually, but emotionally. For fans, it felt like losing part of the story they had followed for years. But for those involved, it was more than that. It was personal. And personal stories are rarely simple. They involve emotions, stress, decisions that are not easy. Even when shared publicly, they are often incomplete, because some details remain private. And that is what makes this situation complex. There is enough information to understand that something changed, but not enough to fully explain how or why. And sometimes, that is all that is available. The visible story, and the hidden one beneath it. As time moved forward, one thing became clear. This was not just an ending. It was a turning point for the channel, for Chad, and for whatever path Jolene chose next. But even with this understanding, one question still remained. Was this truly the end of their story, or just the beginning of something unexpected? In the end, the story of Bad Chad and Jolene is not just about a channel or a sudden exit. It is about how pressure, time, and unseen struggles can slowly change even the strongest partnerships. What the audience saw was only part of the journey. The rest remains behind the scenes. And sometimes, the full truth is never completely known. If you found this story meaningful, consider subscribing for more real-life documentaries that explore the hidden stories behind public lives.